We're very excited today. We're being joined by Allison McNeill, former head coach of the Canadian national team, Simon Fraser coach, University of Oregon coach. Thank you so much for joining us, Allison.
Happy to be here. Thanks for asking me, Anthony.
Fantastic. So, obviously you started, in your hometown. Where'd you grow up, and how did basketball kind of get started for you in your life?
Right. So I was born and raised in Princeton, BC. You all know that, Hope Princeton Highway in Princeton. So a very small town, about 1,500 people when I lived there. And as I always tell everybody, I played everything. So my first two competitive sports were swimming, community sports, swimming, and then downhill skiing. And I loved them both. And when you're in a small town, you're pretty successful at everything because there's not a lot of competition. So I was good in both those. And then I kind of got into school sports. And my mom and dad had done athletics when they were young, but they both had to go to work early. And we owned the movie theater in town, the Capitol Theater in Princeton. My grandfather built it. So my parents worked there at night, and then they worked a job during the day. So they worked two jobs. And then my sister and I would go to the movie theater with them and work. So it was a family mom and pop business. My sister sold the tickets. I ripped the tickets. I was pretty young. My mom sold the candy, and my dad ran the movie upstairs. And then we would have to clean up after. And and so growing up in a small town, you kind of participate in everything. I was a softball shortstop and pitcher. I'm too small for a pitcher. I downhill skied. I did track, volleyball, basketball, and somehow I liked basketball the best. But I kind of played them all. And then in grade 10, grade 9, end of grade 9, I asked my parents if I could move, and they were like, no, you're not moving, you're too young. And then I pestered them for a year, so finally they gave in, and in grade 11, I went to have a look at New West Secondary School and Salmon Arm Secondary School. And everyone always goes, why those two? Because we had a teacher in Princeton from Salmon Arm, and we had a teacher in Princeton from New West, and they both said good programs. So my dad took me, we looked, and New West scared the bejeepers out of me because the school was bigger than my hometown.
Bigger than your hometown, yeah.
Yeah. And it was Bob Gare, who was an amazing coach. He's passed now, but just a wonderful guy. And I got to know him so many years later for many years. And I could have maybe played for him. But anyway, I ended up going to Salmon Arm. I boarded there with a couple of different elderly ladies. And that's where I ended up finishing my grade 11, 12. We won back-to-back provincials. And
okay, so hold on a second. So you come down from up north, you're in Princeton, you come down, you end up going to Salmon Arm. Obviously, it's a basketball community. They're basketball people there. They take it seriously. And, you're not going to be the only one who can play there. So what's it like, going, Salmon Arm's obviously not in U.S. secondary where there's, probably 3,000 to 4,000 kids that go to the school. Yeah. You're in a bigger community, but it's not that much bigger. So talk about that experience and what it was like to get out of your comfort zone. And you clearly wanted to do it for your parents to have the faith that this was a good idea. Because I can't imagine that's an easy decision for your parents to say, yeah, no, go for it.
I know when Eli comes to you a few years down the road, you'll be saying, you're not leaving.
You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I know. Mom will really be saying it because my mom was like, what? You're not leaving.
It won't even be up to me. I'm not worried about it.
I know, exactly. So, I don't know. I liked basketball so much. I'd gone to a couple basketball camps, one in Nelson and one in Kamloops. And I just wanted to play at a higher level. And I really liked my teammates in Princeton. They were good friends, but no one took it too seriously. And I would practice on the outdoor courts by myself all the time. And I just had a feeling I wanted to do something more. So I don't know how you get that feeling at 14, but you do. And so that was that. And we went there, and Joe Kupke was the coach. He was great. And I just remember, probably shouldn't even tell this, but I show up in my cutoff jean shorts. Now we are talking the 70s, but still it's Princeton, with those little silver studs you put in, because we'd all studded up our jeans, and a pair of tobacco running shoes and some t-shirt. I didn't even know what you should wear. I was not a basketball player. I just loved basketball. And he said, we could use you. And then I was lucky enough to be able to play with Bev Smith, arguably the best player that ever played in Canada. And my coach was great. My teammates were great. And we won back-to-back, like I said, provincial championships. And I think that's where I learned to be part of a really good team. And that's always been important to me because we just had such a good team. And I was clearly not the best player, Bev was, but I was okay to be, I don't know, Robin to her Batman or whatever.
Man, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, she's pretty good.
I've played on a lot of teams, and there was a lot of really good players that that had to be her Robin. So it ended up being okay for both of you, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
So
and lifelong friendships too.
absolutely. And you always say, the people you go to high school with, you kind of remember a lot, some of them for the rest of your life. For you, that's kind of been even more so, but we'll get to that in a second at Oregon. But where'd you end up deciding to go to university, and what put you there?
So again, it's going to sound stupid, but it's a different time, and I was from a small town. I didn't actually know you could play at university till I got to Salmon Arm. I didn't really understand the concept. I didn't know about university basketball. My dad went to 1 year at UBC, and then I think he had too much fun. His dad made him come home and work in the family business. But so I didn't really know. I wanted to go to university. My parents stressed going to university, but at that time, so I kind of figured it out when I got to Salmon Arm. Like there had been players that had gone on to play at UBC and players that had gone on to play at Lethbridge, and I was like, hey, I'd kind of like to play. So Norm Vickery, there's a connection with so many people here, Ken Shields, Kathy Shields. So he was at Laurentian University at the time. And he came out to watch me play, and he said, I'd like you to come to Sudbury, Ontario. And he phoned me, and I was pretty shy, and he doesn't talk much. So the phone calls were ridiculously nothing said and boring. But anyway, and then a couple schools in the US contacted me, but I was really unaware of that. My parents weren't involved in the basketball community. There were no clubs, no provincial teams. I didn't know. So I liked Norm, and I thought the idea of going to a school where I could win a Canadian championship as part of a team. And I never visited. I never saw Sudbury. My parents put me on a plane and sent a trunk of stuff out, which didn't arrive for a week. And I just went to Sudbury. I went out for Frosh Week, and yeah, so that's how it happened. He just recruited me, and I went. I didn't know anyone.
I mean, again, another major culture shock for you. I mean, what are we talking? You're going to Sudbury. Back then, it wasn't nearly as big of a place as it is now. What was that like going from Salmon Arm all the way out there?
Yeah. Again, you're right about the culture shock. There's shocks when you make those changes, but I don't know. I wanted to play basketball, so I could have been on the moon. It didn't. I mean, I always say to kids, you're all worried whether you're going to be in the sunshine or the this or the that. Are you kidding me? You're going to be in the library, on the court, and in the weight room. If you're thinking you're going to be on a holiday, you're not going to make it. So I went. It snows all the time. We got snowed into our dorms a few times. It was crazy. Northern Ontario people like to have a good time. So luckily I don't drink. So I did a lot of the driving and a lot of taking care of my teammates, and just had a lot of fun. It was great 2 years. Norm was tough. For the most part, I'd say fair. Sometimes I look back now, I'm going, was a coach in the 70s. It was different. But I learned a lot from him and my teammates, who I stayed friends with for some of them for a long time.
So you played 2 years there, and then what'd you end up doing?
So 2 years there, and I loved my 2 years there. And then Norm left. Norm Vickery was leaving, and I really went out there because of him. I mean, I think picking a coach that believes in you and that can help develop you is why you should go to school. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to stay because he's there. And Bev Smith, my high school teammate, had spent 1 year at Oregon, and she said, and they had recruited me out of high school, Oregon. And so she said, come down here. Like, what are you doing? Why are you there? Come on. And I thought, okay, well, I'd rather get back home, closer to home. And if Norm Vickery had stayed, I may have stayed because he was just such a good coach, and we had a great team. But yeah, I left. So I came home, and then went down to Oregon and finished 2 years there, and then went as a grad assistant, and then over to Germany to play. And yeah,
okay,
2 years in Oregon were great too.
Let's not relax. Take it easy.
I've been all over. Yeah.
You go to Oregon. You said you had the opportunity to go to Oregon out of high school, and you chose Laurentian. What made you? I mean, obviously Norm was a very good coach, but Oregon, was it not the same level that it is today? I mean, obviously today it's a really big deal. What kind of pushed you to Laurentian instead of Oregon?
Yeah, I think it was still a big deal, but I don't think at that time, like Title IX just came in 1976, and I had graduated high school in 1977. So I believe Bev Smith was the first Title IX full scholarship athlete at Oregon. For sure in women's basketball, maybe in anything. I'm not 100% sure. So Title IX had just come in. So basketball was still big, but the money wasn't there for scholarships. So I don't even remember, what they offered or if they offered. And yeah, part of me had kind of wanted to stay in Canada, and And I don't know, I guess I had a little connect with Norm and just felt that was a good situation. But when he left, I think, you know, Bev was going and we were such good high school buddies. And I just thought, oh, it's a different challenge, a new challenge. And it really wasn't about getting closer to home because I could handle that. But yeah, I think it was more Bev going and just a different challenge. And at that point now, the women were AIAW. And then I think in my second year, we went NC2A. So the NC2A was just men, AIAW was just women, and then they combined. So it was kind of neat to be part of the cutting edge of the Title IX just coming in. The small ball came in just after I graduated. We played with the men's side. Like you're just kind of on the cusp of a lot of pretty cool things. So I'm pretty grateful for that opportunity.
What, you know, what was it like playing down there? I mean, obviously, you know, it's a nice area, but it's a university area. It's not, you know, probably a little more Princeton-y than you know, other things. What was that like, kind of going to a destination school and kind of experiencing the different things there? And then what did you end up graduating with?
Right. So yeah, I think it was a perfect fit for Bev and I, and actually they've had a lot of Canadians, Allison Lang and Jackie Semenak from Kelowna. There's been a ton of Canadians. I'm of course forgetting somebody right off the top, but I think it's a perfect fit because it's a college town, and that would be right up my alley. I used to, you know, we used to go to the football games. I used to sit and watch the men's teams practice. I was able to see a lot of pro men play. I saw Ernie Kent coach. I think it was a big part of my development. Probably when I should have been in the library, I was in the gym watching the men practice or whatever. So that was just a great experience having the college atmosphere. And it was still it was still big time. But I mean, obviously with the money that's come into college sports since then, that's a long time ago, it's even bigger. But I'm still a Duck through and through. I mean, I took our high school team down to Eugene, and Bev Smith set up some games for us. And then we went and watched the Duck women practice and went to a Duck women's game. And I got to speak to the team. Kelly Graves was really great about asking me to. I didn't want to, but he and so that's just a neat connection. It'll always be my school. I'll always feel proud. I went and watched them when they qualified for the Final Four in Portland. That's a feeling I don't think I'll ever lose, just how much fun I had there and the teammates. And yeah, it was a perfect fit for me. Smaller town. I would always go for a college town. Like that would be me. I wouldn't be at a school that was in a city probably, but
well, listen, it worked out, and he's obviously done a great job. It's got to be kind of cool seeing somebody come in and totally transform the program there and take it to new heights. What's that been like as an alumni for you?
Oh my gosh, so amazing. I can't wait to check my Twitter in the morning and see what they've done. And, you know, our players, they were saying we were reviewing the highlights of the year with my high school team, and they were saying one of the highlights was being in the airport flying back from Eugene, and Sabrina Ionescu showed up there and they got pictures with her and she talked to them and they're all like, she's so nice, and they got to see her practice. And so you don't kind of realize just how big they are. And I just had seen somewhere, probably on Twitter, that their Instagram and all that has the most interaction of any of the college women's teams right now. Like everybody's interested in Oregon. And I think Kelly's done a great job. They're fun to watch play. He keeps it enjoyable for the players. I mean, like I said, we watch practice and they work hard, but they're really loving. They play with joy.
For sure.
So I don't know. We're all pretty proud of that.
Oh no. I mean, what a cool thing to be a part of, for sure. You do a year as a graduate assistant. What's that experience like? Obviously, you go right into coaching. So no break time there. What was that like?
Oh, that was great. I mean, I'm really grateful that I got that opportunity. And I coached with Bev Bland, who was in my wedding party along with Bev Smith. And Bev Bland was a 76 Olympian for Canada. She played at Richmond High and then 1 year at UBC and then finished at SFU. And she was great to play for. And then I coached with her the next year at Portland State University, just 1 year. That's then when I went overseas. But I think, well, I always say I coached Bev Smith because I did for that year. I was the grad assistant. I think we were in a big house with 5 other people. But so it was interesting to be that close in age to everybody. So I would say that I observed more than I actually coached. And I helped a lot with scouting reports. And I did a lot of putting letters in envelopes to send to recruits back when you did the letters. I did a lot of office work, but it was really good in my development to learn those things.
So what happened after that?
So then Bev Bland got the head coaching job at Portland State University, and she asked me to come as an assistant. And I thought, well, this is awesome. I can be a D1 assistant. I'll go. So I went, and we had just, yeah, it was good. We did really well, but she had some things, personal things come up, and she wanted to move back to Canada. So she did, and they actually offered me the job, but I was so young, and I didn't really know what to do. And so I drove back down to Oregon, and I met with Jim Haney. There were a couple, I knew a lot of the guys on the men's coaching staff. And so I met with them, and Jim Haney, who ended up being, I can't remember if he was the commissioner for the SEC or whatever. He said to me, don't be crazy. Don't take it. You're not ready. And your record will be you. Like, that'll be your record. Whatever you do there, it's going to be stuck with you. And the two younger assistants were like, oh my gosh, you'll be the youngest Division I head coach. Take it. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not tired of playing. So my head coach at Oregon, Elwyn Heine, he had connections in Germany. So he got me a position in Germany. I decided to go play rather than go coach right away. So I'm happy I did that.
So let me ask this question. How did the coach do that took the job?
Good. Yeah. It was good. And
so you end up going to Germany and you go play.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Germany's a very cool city. What was that like? How was that experience, and what made you decide on Germany, and kind of talk me through that whole thing?
Okay, well, as you know, but maybe some people watching might not know, I'm about 5'2.5", 5'3", so there's not a lot of people knocking down your door to play pro. So I would go wherever they told me. So I went to a second division team in Germany, in Monheim, M-O-N-H-E-I-M, near Dusseldorf and Cologne. And it was awesome. The players were great. We had a 16-year-old on our team who was on a German junior national team, and she was a point guard. So that was my first opportunity to kind of mentor. And, you know, I'd been through university, and I was stronger, fitter, you know, more experienced. So I had fun going against her and helping her. Then we had, I think, about a 33-year-old lawyer by day show up to play at night, kind of. So it was a real mixed bag, but we won our division to go up to Division I. I unfortunately had a really serious ankle injury, had to have surgery, finished the season. My mom came over. We traveled around Europe for about 3 weeks together, I think. And then when I came back, I was like, you know what, I'm just ready to get coaching. Like, I'm not that great a player. I'm not going to make money playing pro. And so I came back and started teaching and coaching.
So right away, you knew coaching was for you, and you had to keep going.
Yeah, for sure.
And so where did you end up coaching?
Well, I had a degree in, I was a Bachelor of Science with a major in phys ed. So I was a science phys ed teacher. And so I immediately applied for some jobs, and I got one in Aldergrove, but it was part-time. And I thought, you know, I could take it, and maybe, but then Revelstoke offered me a full-time job. I'm like, well, I'll go up there. So I went to Revelstoke for 2 years, and I taught up there. And it was great fun. I did volleyball, basketball, track, every dance I covered. I just really had a great time. And remember, I had a basketball camp, and it was Bev Smith, myself, and Bev Bland. So 2 Olympians, 2 Hall of Famers, and me. And the kids had no idea how lucky they were, but they were such great kids there. And I got, you know, morning shooting going. We started lifting, and it was just a lot of fun. But George Lord was the coach there, and he had done a really fabulous job at the single A level. And I really had 2 fun years there. And the teaching science was difficult because it's a big load when you're coaching. There's a lot of labs and a lot of marking, but I had great people to work with that helped me through the first year's teaching.
So you briefly mentioned that you got the kids starting to lift weights. When did you find out as a player that weights was something that was important for you?
Well, so that happened to me in Salmon Arm. When I was in Princeton, it's a kind of a funny story. I had a key to the gym in Princeton, but I was to tell no one, and I never did. And I would sneak in, and it was an outside door I could go in. And my mom had talked to a janitor there and convinced him that I'm a good kid, and Mr. Hill, and he gave us the key. So I would go in, and I did bleacher hops, and I'd run the bleachers, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew that probably I should do some kind of conditioning or something. So when I got to Salmon Arm, Brian Gibbons, parent of Lanny, Aaron, and Tanis, the 3, he was my PE teacher, and he was really into lifting. So he got us going on a program. Universal Gym at that time, just, you know, if you know what that is. And so we did a lot of lifting, and that's when I really liked it. I still lift, and that's when I knew it just changed our whole team. We were just so much stronger than everybody, and we had Bev.
That helps too. But you know what? I talk to kids about this all the time, and I think it's you know, obviously the speed at the next level is obviously a huge jump, but I think physicality is the biggest jump. if you don't have the base training in weights, it's very difficult for any kid to come out of high school and go into university and actually achieve any level of success right off the top. And so it's kind of interesting that you had that at such a young experience, especially back then. I don't think that was definitely not the standard from what I've been told.
No, I mean, in the 70s and even into the early 80s, there weren't a lot of women lifting. And same at Laurentian University, we lifted hard. We were doing Olympic lift squats and deadlifts and cleans, and Norm Vickery pushed us very hard in the weight room. And I think that was a big difference maker too. We were so much stronger than most of the other Canadian teams, not all, but yeah.
So you do a couple of years up there, and then what happens next?
So Mike and I were dating, and it was a long distance. And so we got married in the summer of '86. And then I came down and got a job at Seaquam Secondary School in Delta. So I taught there for a year, and I coached 1 year there. And I actually had a couple of pretty great players, Laurie Orstad, who played for me up at SFU, and Annette Lutz went on to Fresno Pacific, and that was kind of fun. I had them for a year, but then I lost my job because that's when there were too many teachers. And so I was waiting around, might get a job, might not. And WJ Mowat opened up. So I took that job. So now I'm on my third school, trying to build a program, hoping to get things going. And I loved Mowat. Oh, really great kids. All the schools were great. And Mike and I were married, and then Mike got a job in Mission. So it was perfect, except then that year, the Simon Fraser job opened up. So I applied. I forget who, someone said, well, you should apply. So I applied, and Lauren Davies interviewed me once, and I kind of thought I had an in because he went to Oregon to do his master's, I think. So I was like, oh, he's going to like the Ducks. And sure enough, he asked me quite a bit about Oregon. And I got a second interview, and I got the job after SFU, so I left teaching.
How old were you at the time?
Oh, good question. So we were married in '86, and I think I got the job in '88. So 29 maybe?
I mean, pretty young, for an opportunity like that. I mean, back then it was just SFU, UBC, UVic. There were the three real big-time schools, right?
Correct. Yeah. No, it was a huge opportunity. And, it's funny because I always think, well, I didn't have that much experience, but I had coached the provincial team this summer before I came in. I'd been an assistant at 2 D1 programs. I'd coached in high school for 4 years. It doesn't seem like much now, but I think back then it probably was a fair bit of experience for a female coach, especially. There weren't as many female coaches. So yeah, but I'm forever grateful for Lauren Davies taking a chance on a young coach like me, because
I don't know, that resume seems pretty good to me. You play pro in Germany, you got a couple of years to one. I'd probably hire you too, to be honest with you.
Oh,
you got the job. What was the team like when you got there? And obviously a big difference from high school to coaching university. So I'm assuming you got to make a bunch of changes. What's that like?
Yeah. Well, I think I always think you are what you are kind of as a coach. I mean, you have to change for your personnel. When I went to the national team, I mean, they're adult women with lives and partners and families, like it's different. But the jump up to SFU, I was just so excited to have the program and to, I'd known players that had played there, and Mike had coached there, Mike had gone to school there, and a lot of my friends had gone to school there. Most of, I think, Mike's whole side of the family had gone to school there. So it was exciting just to get the job. And Bev Bland, who'd been she's the one who told me to apply. She'd been my bridesmaid at my wedding. She had coached there right before me. So she had said, you should apply. And she was having her second baby, so she was moving on from coaching. And so she left some pretty good players, just there weren't a lot. So we had, I think, 4 returning players. And then we had to have a big recruiting year, which we did. But I think Bev had done a really great job there. She's the one. Barb Robertson was before Bev Bland, and Barb's, I think, in the Hall of Fame, and just was an amazing person. And she really had to battle a lot of inequities for women there. I mean, the women get all the bad practice times, only practice in the morning, just a lot of things. It was the times, right? And not right, but it was the time. So then Bev Bland came in, and so I think they'd had a winning season prior to me getting there. Bev had a good season. They hadn't made the playoffs, but so I took over that team, and then had a great recruiting class. That was, I think we had 6 or 7 come in that year that were really good players.
Well, it's funny because, I interviewed Michelle Henry, and she obviously ended up having a fantastic career at Simon. But, she tells the story of, her asking you for your opinion on where she should go to university. You're like, well, I can't really give you my opinion because I just got the job. She's like, oh, well, then I guess I'm coming there. And so that's got to be a good start to the process.
Yeah, it's not bad when you get a Hall of Famer in your first class. Yeah, it was actually kind of funny because I'd just taken the job at SFU, but I'd already started with the provincial team. And I remember I was told by the provincial team people, naturally, you can't wear SFU gear. You can't talk to the team about SFU. I said, hey, no one even knows I have the job yet, so I'm fine. And I didn't talk to any of them. I was like, that's the rule, that's the rule. And then Michelle asked me that question. I'm like, well, I don't want to lie to her. So yeah, that's exactly what I said. And she said, I said, well, let's not talk about it right now. And I still encourage her to take her visits, and she did. She took some visits, but at the end of the day, I think there was kind of her and Andrea Schneider and Nadine Caron and Mary Lou McDonald and Heidi Hansen and Marie McPherson and Tracy Nazarchuk. And I think they kind of said, let's go change it. Let's go. They were a pretty confident group overall. And I think they just thought that they could really do something special. And I thought they could too. I think we all just believed it.
I mean, that's a heck of a recruiting. I mean, the fact that I know multiple people that you just mentioned it means they were very good. I mean, that's a good way to start. So if you were to look at all the players that you had at Simon while you were there, who would be the one player that you think kind of turned the program around, or was it never really one? It was multiple.
Yeah, I would say it's multiple, and I would say it was that group because Simon Fraser had never. Bev Bland did an outstanding job. I loved her and she was a great coach, but she coached me at Oregon, but they didn't make the playoffs, and no men's basketball team no one in basketball had ever made the playoffs. It was quite a feat. Like I remember the first year my very first season there, and the preseason rankings come out and we're 7th out of 8 teams. I was livid. I had no idea. Stupidity I'm like, well, I've never been 7th at anything, and neither of you guys. And so we're all like nose out of joint. And I think it helped us. We got pretty motivated, but I knew how to work hard and learned work ethic from my parents working in the theater. And I've always worked hard. And I had all these small town kids, and they worked like Andrew Schneider and out of Kamloops, out of Terrace, out of Cranbrook, out of Hope. They worked really hard. And they didn't know any different. So I was a bit of a crazy woman, and we were really fit and really strong. And so, yeah, it was it was like perfect timing.
So the thing on you back then was that you were a fantastic recruiter and that you really went after it. So those were the two things that I've been told about Allison McNeill when she got the job. So A, how accurate is that? And then B, what gave you those two characteristics, if those were the things that you thought that you brought right off the top?
Yeah, I think I'm a good recruiter because I like people. I like kids. I don't lie. I mean, I love the game. I believe I can help people get better. So I think if you believe all that about yourself and you're authentic, I mean, I never lied. I know you've talked to Kathy Shields. I remember recruiting Lindsay Brooke, and I was like, her dad's from Salmon Arm. She's like small guard. I am getting her out of Victoria. Tough to get anybody out of Victoria when Kathy was at UVic because she's just such a phenomenal coach. So I remember Lindsay Brooke calling me and telling me she wasn't coming. I was a little teary-eyed. She was a little teary-eyed because we connected. It didn't mean it was the right place for her. She had a fabulous career. But I remember the first thing I said to her, I said, you know what, I'm so disappointed that you're not coming here, but you're going to be playing for a fantastic coach at UVic. And that's true. And so I'm not going to say to you, you made a big mistake, what's wrong with you? That's not what it's about. I mean, I wanted her to have a good career. So I think you can recruit. I also knew what I could coach. I know the kind of kids I can't coach, and I know the kind of kids I could coach. So I didn't go after kids that couldn't make it with me.
What is that? So what was that?
Well, I don't want to give any examples but just, I mean, if there's a kid who's, pretty soft, probably not going to get along with me very well. It's just not going to happen. And when I say soft, I mean, doesn't want to really get in the gym, doesn't really want to compete in practice, doesn't really want someone that's saying that that's not good enough. There's probably just not going to happen. And I mean, we hardly had any transfers because I was very specific about how I recruited. And then I also did, it was back in the day, but I still do it, but I did home visits. And when you get to know the kids and you get to know their parents, I think that even tells you more, like how you can connect. You can see how they behave with their parents. And then, okay, if they're listening to their mom and dad, they're likely to listen to me. And so I think I was good at identifying talent. I could speak easily to kids. I was a lot younger. It was a lot easier. And I like kids. I like recruiting. I've always enjoyed recruiting. Yeah. And then I think getting after it, I pushed kids. I pushed them pretty hard, but I was respectful. I mean, I think if I could go back, I'd probably yell a little less, but can't go back. And I did.
Well, you know what? I think if you talk to the kids that you coach, I think they probably didn't have a problem with it. I think
no.
you know, it's funny, there's some coaches in our province who are big time yellers, but a lot of the times they have the most passionate, you know, former players about how much they enjoyed the experience. Because
Yeah.
if they know, you know, Bruce Langford told me this a long time ago. I said, you know, what's the deal? And he said, if kids know you're in it to help them, you know, the rest of the stuff really isn't that important. That's kind of the thing. If they have that, whatever you say after that, they know that it's for them. Now they'll run through a wall. If you tell them they got to wake up and shoot, they'll wake up and shoot. If you tell them they got to lift, they'll lift. If you light them up, they know it's for them. It's not for you. So I think that's all part of the process.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that it's I would say growing up in the 70s, I would think I saw some coaches that were overboard, and I see that now. I see that today. I think there can be things that are really hurtful to kids and I remember one time I was watching a game and I was upset after, so I called my dad, who's 87 and sharp as a tack. So I called him and I said to my dad, I just watched a coach today and it's just so painful to watch, you know, beating up these young kids. And my dad said, that's too bad because they don't really have their armor yet. And I think that's true. So though I got after university kids, they chose to come there. I met with every one of them in their parents' living room. I told them exactly what I was like. They all watched it practice. So then I go, you know what you're coming there for. And you're there for a reason. I mean, you're there to compete at a high level and get a good education. But in high school and below, sometimes I think we have to be careful because they're developing their self-esteem still and they don't have their armor. But I mean, you know, if you're going to sit on your hands coaching all the time, I don't think that's going to work either. So there has to be a balance.
It's a happy medium for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's the passion.
For them.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if we're just doing it for ourselves, then they're going to be like, yeah, right. But no, and I think, you know, most good coaches have the players first and foremost in their thoughts and actions.
Absolutely. So, you know, you get the Simon. I'm assuming there's a bunch of cultural things you want to change, but I'm assuming you want more opportunity for your kids, both, you know, whether it's extra time in the gym, whether it's extra money for going to university, whether it's more resources, better travel experience. What was it like trying to put that whole thing together at that time of, you know, society being the way it was?
Yeah, I mean, I can look back now and say it was hard, but you know, at the time you're just in it, so your head's down and you're just working. I told this story on another Zoom call, can't remember where, but with Canada Basketball, I think. And we had Converse when I first got there. Converse shoes was the sponsor, and then they stopped, like they didn't sponsor anymore. So I was scrambling around, and Reebok pumps were the big thing back then. So I was like, I'm going to call Reebok. And so I wrote a letter to Reebok, and then I went into Jay Triano's office and I said, hey, Jay, do you want to get in on this? He said, yeah, put our name in there. Great. So I sent it off to Reebok. Again, oblivious, thinking, well, of course we're going to get this. Why wouldn't they sponsor us? Anyway, I get a letter back from Reebok. We would like to sponsor the men full, and you will be 2 for 1. And literally, and Jay, I love Jay. He's a great coach, a great guy, but literally he did nothing. I did it all. So our athletic director said, well, we're going to go with that. I said, well, we can go with that this year, but I'm not going with that. So Nike was just down the hill. They were in Coquitlam. They weren't in Toronto. This was and so I put my little handmade proposal together with photocopied articles about Michelle Hendry and our team, and a couple pictures of a full house. Like we packed the gym a couple times, and I went down to Nike, like no appointment. Didn't even think that you had to make one. I walked in there. And just so happened that it was lunch hour and just one person in there. I went in, he said, hi, I've been following your team. He said, I think it's time we sponsored a women's team. We're in. That's how easy it was to get Nike at that time. And people are just like, that is not the story. I'm like, that is 100% the story. So we had Nike, no one else at the school did. And they were unbelievable. We had sweatsuits and shoes, obviously, running shoes. Yeah, they're just so great. And it saved us a ton of money because I was buying all that out of my budget. So I think at that time, like anything, if you don't have it, how are you going to get it? Like, what are you going to do? And I don't think sometimes people are willing to do the hard things to get the no's. But I could have gotten a no there. Well, on to the next one. Who else could?
Well, you did. You got a no from Reebok, right?
I did, exactly. Yeah. And then, so Nike, they stayed on with us the whole time. And we were the first women's team in Canada to get a sponsorship, and they were so great to us. And so there were some situations I had to fight for practice times because we were, Lauren was a great guy, but he was a little bit old school. He'd been a football coach, and the men's sports were more important to him. But we we had more fans, and our kids were doing great. We were getting tons of media
Talk
coverage.
about that. What did you do to get, you're saying you had a couple sell. What was that like? I mean, I can't imagine, it being easy to get that many people out to a game.
No, so before computers and everything, so I used to fax out our schedule to every high school and every high school coach in BC. I'd send out the schedule, and then I'd send little faxes during the year. And I'd get on the phone and I'd call schools and say, we'll leave some tickets for you at the door. And we just started to get a following. And then honestly, we had such great media coverage. I think, again, it was just timing. It was time. They wanted to cover women's sports. Michelle Hendry and Andrea, that whole group were, well, you talked to Michelle. They were really outgoing. They loved to have a good time. Yeah, they're really great speakers, and they always were like that. They were just this incredible energy together and also separately, but almost more together. That's why I said I don't know if I could just pick out, Michelle Hendry. She was, NAIA Player of the Year, so of course she's great. But Andrea Schneider had the all-time assists, and Nadine was a great player. So you had all these players, and so I think that kind of all came together, and we'd be on little bits on TV, and then there'd be stuff in the province and the Sun, and so I think it was a combination of people just getting on board, and I used to get quite a few students, and lots of the football team would come and cheer us on. It was a really fun time, and I think.
And what? It's translated. I mean, Bruce obviously he does a very good job getting people out to games. They probably draw the best in BC for any school to get kids out. So it's kind of become a tradition at Simon to get people out to the women's game. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think, if you don't put a good product on the floor, people aren't going to come. I don't care how hard you work. And so we had great teams. Bruce has some really great teams. And so as long as the product's pretty good, and I think it tends to be more on the women's side. There's a lot of community outreach. We did, tune-up clinics where the kids would come for a Sunday and they'd meet all the players, and our players worked them all. There were lots of things that our players did in the community, and I know Bruce does a ton of that. And I think Deb does too at UBC. And that's sort of traditional on the women's side.
Yeah, for sure. So you coach Simon. How long are you there for?
13 years.
And your teams steadily become very good as you guys get there. You're competing at very high levels. What were some of the achievements that you guys had there as a group that really you look back fondly at?
Yeah. I don't remember records or anything, but I think we had a couple of undefeated league seasons, and then went to NAIA Nationals 10 or 11 times in a row. We made, I think, 3 Final Fours, lost in the final twice, but to a better team, I think. I'm pretty proud of how we played. We beat quite a few D1 schools. We'd schedule as many D1 schools as we could that would play us, so we beat a few of those. We took trips to the Bahamas a couple times, played in a couple tournaments there. I tried to make it like a college experience like I had. I didn't want it to just be about basketball, and I'd say I did the same with the national team. I remember we were in Chile with the national team, and I found a chocolate factory that we could tour. It might have been a personal thing for me, but just saying. So
everybody got something.
Oh yeah, and chili chocolate, I don't care. Don't at me because it's the best chocolate in the world. And so I tried to do things. So that's what I did with the players. We went to Hawaii. We did the Bahamas a couple times, Disneyland, and playing games and training hard. So I think they had a good university experience.
Absolutely. And so you coached your 13th season at Simon, and then you decided you're going to do something else. How did that come about, and what was it like?
Yeah, that's good, Anthony. I'd like to clear some of that up. Everybody said it was because we were going to U Sports, to CIAU, and it wasn't that at all. I'd already been kind of looking for probably 2 years just needed a change. I just wanted to change, and I loved SFU. I loved my time there. Changing athletic directors, we had 2 or 3 changes, is always difficult, just because it's almost like they come in and the staff is training them. So, but that, and people go, it was because of that. It was none of that. It wasn't that we were going U Sports. It was anything. I just needed a change. I just wanted something more. And at that time, I really thought it was youth sports. I really was feeling like I wanted to get back to youth sports. So I'd already decided that I was going to leave Simon, and then Bev Smith called me and she said, I just got the job at Oregon. I want you and Mike to come down. I was like, what? This couldn't be more perfect timing. And so I'd already left SFU, and Mike took a leave from teaching, and down we went. So it was really just about me kind of wanting a change. And it was really hard because you recruit kids. And I remember the group, they like Teresa Klein-Yates and Kirsten Wood, they were in there.
You left the hell of a team. I mean, it was a hell of a team.
Yeah, they were in their 5th year. And that's the other thing. And people will say, oh, but I didn't want to leave the cupboard bare. I'm like, I want to see, you don't put 13 years of your life and literally your life into something and then hope that it fails. It's anything but the opposite. You just want it to succeed. And so, yeah, that was, it was really great to see Bruce come in and just take it to even greater heights, and just so proud of the program and being part of it. I mean, you look back, it's like when I look at Oregon, I see how good they are now. And I think I was way back down there, part of that, because you have an affinity and an association to that organization forever. For life.
Absolutely. So you get to Oregon. By then, it is big time. I mean, Oregon is the real deal by the time you guys get there the second time. It's not even up for debate anymore. It's a national power.
Yes.
They want to get women's basketball going. I would imagine that's why they hired Bev to kind of kick it up to take it to the next level. She brings you guys over there. They got the Nike deal. You don't have to go get a Nike deal anymore. The Nike deal's done.
Phil's right there. Yeah.
And I'm assuming he wants to win, and I'm assuming they want to win. What's it like? The culture changed again. I mean, that's got to be, you're creating your own pressure at Simon at Oregon. It's there already. You don't need to create any of it yourself. What's that like?
You're right. That's good. Yeah. So I would say that's really good, Anthony, because I agree that I think at Simon they wanted us to do well, but it's different. It's just different. They're not putting that kind of money into it. And so the pressure at Oregon is much greater. And Bev had a radio show. She had a TV show. There's all these things that she had to do and we had to do, and well, her mostly. But the players were great. We really enjoyed being there. I think the first year we had a bit of a rough season, a bit of Bev all of us changing the culture, and they'd had some good coaches, but some discourse between coaches and players. And so I actually think Jody Runge, who was there before, did a really great job. But somehow the players, it turned and it just wasn't good. So, but she's a great coach. And yeah, so that first year, and then that first year we won the WNIT. So the best of the rest. Yeah, it was phenomenal. And our players just played great. They had a lot of seniors. And so recruiting was a big deal. And then the next year, I think we were okay. And then this third year, I can't remember now, but we went to the NCAA tournament in our 4th year, and we lost to Baylor, who won it. And that's who we ended up losing to. So we had a really great season. And then my mom got sick, and Mike and I decided to come home to be closer to her. And so we got about 6 months with her before she passed away, or I might've stayed. I don't know. It was a lot of fun. Enjoyed coaching with Bev. And it's just, I think the recruiting picture is so big there. It's just so vast. There's so many players, and there's so many good players. It's almost overwhelming in some ways, and what player wants to come to your school. And I think it took a while to figure that out. And I think Bev stayed like 8 more years, I think 7 or 8 more years. And then, I think Kelly's just taken it to a whole nother level though. And I think his experience and his coaching staff and his reputation is really, and
he built a program at Gonzaga, but he was losing out. He was recruiting all the right kids. He was just losing out to them because he was at Gonzaga, and then he got the Oregon job, and the exact same pitch, I would imagine, just got him the player he couldn't get before.
I agree, because they're similar communities. I mean, Eugene would be a little different than in Spokane, but still similar. Yeah, and Mark Campbell, who's the assistant there, is kind of been known as a great technical coach, but also just a great recruiter and a great spotter of talent. So yeah, I mean, we had a really great time, and like I said, after 4 years, I just felt that it was more important to be close to my family. At that point, I'd kind of done a lot of things, and they'd supported me, so it's time to be closer to my mom.
Yeah, absolutely. So you get involved with the national program. When did that start, and how did that come about?
So I was down at Oregon, and Bev Smith had been the national team coach, and I had I did a couple stints with junior programs and development programs. And I went to the Olympic qualifier in 2000 with Bev and Deb Huban and Linda Marquis as like an apprentice coach, because I was doing junior, just to see and learn. And I didn't think anything about whether I wanted to be there or not, didn't really think about it. And then Bev decided she wasn't going to continue. And she said, I think you should apply. And I said, oh, I don't know. Well, I'm not sure. And then Leslie Delsin, she was the ED at Canada Basketball. She called me and she said, asked me some questions. And then she goes, well, that was your first interview. I was like, oh, okay. And she said, I want you to apply. I was like, all right. So then I think I had at least one more, maybe 2. And yeah, I felt, so I think, again, right place, right time, and good timing. The program was in need of rebuilding, and I think that's a strength I have, is building. So Yeah, that was a big challenge. So that was when we were at Oregon, just when we were leaving.
So you get the team. Who's the best players on the team at that time?
Oh, well, we had Stacey Dales, Tammy Sutton-Brown, Claudia Broussard, Nikki Johnson. Those were the older athletes that were still playing. But, you didn't get Tammy and Stacey except for like a couple days because they were WNBA and we had no money. So our training camps were, 5 days, 7 days, maybe 2 weeks if you're lucky. But yeah, those were kind of the veteran players back then.
And so for you do everything you can to get the program going, get in the right direction, and your team ends up making the Olympics in the future. What was it like to end up being like, finally we did it and we made the Olympics? I mean, that's a big, people coach for their entire lives. They never even get close to that opportunity. And you get that opportunity. That's got to be something incredible.
Yeah, so first I'm really grateful to have that opportunity because you're right, a lot of people, especially I think to represent your country at that level. So it was a lot of work. When we took over, our staff took over after Bev she finished the 2000 Olympics. And so we took over in 2001. So I coached the senior team for 11 years and there were mass retirements and there'd been no development. In fact, Kathy Shields, again, I had called her for some advice about the job and she said, Allison, I'm not going to discourage you from taking it. But she said, you are going to pay for the last 15 years of non-development below the senior team. And we did. I mean, we did. There was no pool. There was a pool of, if you said to me, in fact, I had a conversation with Tom Marr, who was the Australia coach at the time. And I said to him, how many players do you think you have in your country that could seriously play at the Olympic level right now? I said, we've got a pool of about 28, 30. And he said, what do you have? I said, I think we have 8. I think we have 8 players that can play at that. Against Australia, against the US. And that's probably what we had. Not to say the others weren't good, but the lack of development, the lack of funding. My first summer that we had the national team, we had a 2-week training camp and we played 10 games in Europe. Your club program does more than that. That's what we did. And I remember I came back and I said to Canada Basketball, I'm out. This is recreational elite at best. Either we got to figure some way to compete more, travel more. So end up China would pay for us. That's why I went there so many times, and Cuba and places. It was tough. It was, but it was fun. It was awesome. And the players really bought in, the younger ones, to getting better and to becoming world class because people they didn't train hard enough. They weren't fit enough. They weren't strong enough. They weren't skilled enough. They were doing everything they could. I'm not criticizing them. It's partly our system was broken.
Yeah, and so you get it going, getting to the Olympics. That first time walking in the door in the grand stadium for opening ceremonies. Yeah. Your heart's got to skip a beat, I would imagine. Yeah,
that was pretty neat. So actually, I was on a call this morning doing a clinic for the Turkish Basketball Federation, and we were reminiscing July 1st, 2012 in Ankara, Turkey, when we qualified. It was an unbelievable feeling. I just remember looking at the people's faces and people that I'd known a long time, Chelsea Aubry, Kim Smith, Teresa Gabriel, the BC athlete, all of them. And just looking at how happy they were and how hard they've worked. And, we hadn't been since 2000. And I can tell another story another time about even getting there in 2000 was a bit of luck in that the Argentinian players went down with food poisoning. And so we didn't have to play them. They lost to Mexico. So, things happen. So that was incredible on that day. And just to see everybody hugging everybody, so excited. And then we get, so we're starting to prepare to go to the Olympics, talking about it. And there's a lot of people that say don't go to the opening ceremonies, a ton of people. And they're saying it can affect it. And so I asked the players, I said, okay, this is your Olympics. And they're like, we want to go. I'm like, okay, good. You should want to go. And we didn't play the next day till like 11 or something. So in London, they let you walk in, walk out, and then we watched it on TV. So you didn't have to sit there, be dehydrated for 4 hours. So London did an amazing job. It was pretty something for the players to walk in there.
I've heard that. I've heard that whole, you shouldn't go to the opening ceremonies. And I think it's arguably the worst advice anyone could ever give somebody. Like, I get that you're trying to win and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, man, what are we talking about here? When the Olympics were in Vancouver, I went to 3 events. I went to and I was literally working 20 hours a day. So I literally didn't have the opportunity, but I picked 3 things that had to happen. I had to go to the opening ceremonies. Yeah. I went to the gold medal hockey game, and I went to the closing ceremonies. Yep. That's it. Like, and if you get an opportunity just to go there as a casual fan, it's a life-changing experience. We just moved our office. I have my tickets from the closing ceremonies. You know, like these are, I don't have any of the other tickets. I got the gold medal game and I got the closing ceremonies. I probably sold 10,000 tickets for that event, and I only got 2 tickets left. I mean, so if you can, I think if you can get that opportunity to do that, I mean, it's a life-changing experience, I would imagine.
I agree. And I think there's, I mean, if we'd been the gold medal favorites and we played at 8 a.m. the next day, I mean, maybe we would have thought twice about it. But even then, I'm not sure we would have. We just would have meant get back, get to sleep, plan ahead, make it do. Yeah, no, they were very grateful to go in. And kind of a funny story. The team was all plotting how they would get on TV. I think if we stay on this side, and Mike and I were oblivious. And we walk in holding hands, and somehow we get on TV, Mike and I. And the whole team's like, we were trying to get on TV, and like, we were trying not to get on TV. And so that was pretty funny. But yeah, they were really grateful that they got to do that. And then I think just being in the village, seeing the other athletes come in was really kind of impressive. You know, at one point I'm walking with Mike, and we passed, and he goes, "That was Michael Phelps." I'm like, that guy? I thought he'd be taller. And then we saw Serena Williams. I didn't see Venus, saw Djokovic. You know, it was just kind of neat to see some of the other athletes, and then also to see our athletes in comparison to them. We're like, we've got some pretty good athletes. You know, we're right there. Tony Parker eating at McDonald's, that was interesting.
Yeah.
So the overall experience, I think, Anthony, just being part of the best athletes in the world for our athletes was just wonderful. And we were very relaxed, and we felt like we belonged there. I kind of joke and say we never ever had 5-ring fever. I thought we played our best basketball there. And people think, well, you lost to Russia, you did this close games. Yeah, we did, but we weren't even close to those teams 3 years previous to that. So you got to get close before you can beat them. And I think now the program's right where it should be.
So you mentioned about walking in and holding hands with Mike and being on television, but obviously it's a very unique experience to share all these great moments in your life with your partner. You know, getting to coach at Oregon, there's not too many of those situations where you get to coach with your spouse. There's not too many opportunities where you get to coach a national team with your spouse. Talk a little bit about what it's been like to have, you know, him there with you and kind of get that experience of you know, that's like a real life partner. That's not like
yeah, no,
it's not through it's not like they go do their thing, you go do your thing, and then we'll see you after work. It's kind of like you better like each other, or it's not going to work out.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what people always ask. They're like, how does it work? And I'm like, it just works. I mean, we don't bring it home a lot. I mean, we talk a lot of basketball all the time, but it's pretty, I mean, no, not to say that we won't get after it. We will. And of course, there's no one that I would listen to more. Lisa Tomaitis and I are quite close. So, and if those two told me something, I would be like, okay, I've messed up, or I need to think this through. So it's nice to have someone like Mike, because he can just call me on things, and he just knows, and he knows the right way to do it. That, you know, it's not going to be hurtful, but it's still going to be pointed. And then, so we made it kind of our life's work together. I think that he's just a guy that, when you asked him to come on, he's like, just tell him no, I don't, you know, that. And I'm like, will you come on with me? He goes, no. And he likes to be in the background a bit. He did, you know, I talked to him this, to the Turkish Federation this morning, and he did all the video for me. Like, he did all the film, and I go, that's kind of what he did. He did a lot of the breakdown. He'd get in, you know, when Kim Smith wanted to take a bunch more shots and I'm tired and I have to go watch film, he'd stay in and shoot with her. You know, when Natalie Achonwa would show up late from Notre Dame, he'd sit down with her with the film and show it. Like, there's just all this stuff that he's done in the background forever. And he helped me up at Simon, not my first few years, because he was pretty busy teaching and coaching, but then after that he helped. And we have a lot of views that are very similar in basketball, but there shockingly will be quite a few that are different, and I think that's good. It's pushed us both to think the game differently and to see it differently. But ultimately, we just care so much about each other, so it's been a lot of fun to do it. I don't know if I could have done it, to be honest. Like, someone asked me, I said, I don't know, like, I took a youth team to Russia, and we were gone for 30-something days, and I had a $400-something phone bill, and I missed him so much, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. So it was nice. It's a good thing he's good, because it couldn't just be nepotism. I couldn't just take him on the roadie.
Yeah, no, he had a resume before you guys got together, so it worked out well, for sure. Yeah. So now you obviously are coaching at Semiamu. You got your last season coming up. What's kind of in the pipeline for what you see yourself doing in coaching? You obviously play a lot of golf. You know, what's the future hold for Allison McNeill?
Well, Mike loves golf, and I like it a lot. So we're playing a lot of golf. During the pandemic, Mike I think he played 26 days in a row. The most I played in a row was 6. Yeah, Mike loves to play. And we're a 3-minute walk to the first tee, so it's really simple to go golf at Hazelmere. And we're loving it. And we've used it to travel. We've met a lot of great people. We've been to Ireland, Scotland, and Portugal twice each. Go down to Palm Springs, which that won't be happening anymore in the near future. But yeah, so I think more travel, more golf, try to get better at golf. I'm enjoying it a lot. I hope I don't completely stop doing basketball, but kudos. I always knew this, so I'm not saying anything I didn't know, but high school coaching is tough. Like, it is lots of hours. And I knew this, so, but I used to get paid to coach, and now I don't get paid
anymore.
Not one nickel. Yeah, but the kids are great, and their parents are super, and we always have a good party at the end, and they always give me gift cards, and they're wonderful. I don't do it for that, but it's,
you mean the $50 at Starbucks isn't enough?
Well, that's pretty good, actually. I can use that. They're great, the kids and families. But I would say, I started in 2012 when I retired from the national team in December. I thought, and I came to this conclusion. And Brian Lee must have called me like right after. And I've known Brian for a long time. And he said, hey, I'd love to get a female coach out a little bit more with my team. And what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm working for Tri-Cities, and I'm doing some this and that. And I said, sure, I'll come to a couple of practices. So, hook, line, and sinker. He got me involved with his daughter and Tara and those kids, Nicole, and they were BSC kids at the time. So yeah, I started working with them in about grade 5. And then I've just sort of stayed with them. And it's been nice because I don't travel far. Semi-Am was about a 10-minute drive from my house. Lori Pagic, who's the teacher coach, does all the organizing. I feel like I've got the best job in the world, volunteer job. So I've really enjoyed it and had them at school for grade 8, 9, 10, 11, and hopefully we have a season in 12. But I think probably I will be done at the end of that, because I think Mike will divorce me if I am not done. He's like,
behind you there, I see a very cool picture, and I see a floor of basketballs. Do you want to give me a little bit of the significance of those things behind you?
The picture is our Semi-Amo kids, the 6 that I've coached the longest, and it just happened to be a picture that Paul took when Vancouver Sports Pictures. He didn't take it. His assistant, whose name escapes me right now, the young woman, she took it, and it just happened to be those 6 grade 10s. And I don't know how she got that picture. So one of the parents blew it up and gave it to me. So fun. I love that picture, and I've coached them so long. And then the basketballs, one's from the World Championships, one's from my 300th win at Simon, one's from the Olympic qualifier, I think, and one's from when I played at Oregon, or when I coached at Oregon.
That's fun. So now let me ask you this question. If you could give, you're obviously still very young, but if you could give very young Allison a little tip and say, hey, keep an eye out for this, maybe, give her a little advice. Well, what would that advice be now, you think?
To a younger me, did you say? Oh, stay the course, you're doing it right.
Yeah, just keep grinding.
Stay the course, you're doing it right. Yeah, and I think it's hard because, and you know this, I mean, when you're coaching, you're out there, and so our community is pretty supportive, but it can be pretty critical too. Like, we can be pretty critical of each other, and I don't always think it's right, but it is what it is, I guess. And I think just trying to just believe in yourself and stay the course, and recognize that there's lots of good coaches out there. You're one of them, but try to build a community. And I think I always try to do that. Networking the word doesn't fit for me. I get it. It's nothing wrong with the word, but for me, it's more building my community. And so I think I did a good job of that. And I would say to my younger self, just stay the course, but also get educated. I mean, I did my level 4. I did the work. I did the work to become a better coach. And you'd asked me earlier, like people said she could really recruit and she really got after them. And I'm going, both those things I think are accurate. And I don't think I was technically great. I certainly wasn't horrible. I'd played at university. I'd played professionally. I'd coached at university with 2 different coaches. Coached provincial team. I was an assistant with the junior national team with Tom Kendall, used to be at Winnipeg. So I had some experiences, but I kept studying the game. And so I would say that to young coaches too, is don't be satisfied with what you know. Just continue to learn and grow in the game, because it changes, and you should be as good as you can be for your athletes.
I think, I think we're going to end it on that. That's just that's a great line right there. You've got to be as good as you can be for your athletes. What a fantastic, statement. And I think that's very true. I think as a coach, it's your responsibility to get better and provide the opportunity that, maybe you got from somebody else. You had a coach, you had some coaches. You've talked very glowingly about your coaches from when you were young. And I think, from your coaching, you've created that same dialogue opportunity for some of your players to have and say the same thing about you that you said about your coaches. So I think it's very exciting. I'm excited to hopefully we can get back on the court soon. Thank you so much for coming out today. And if not, I mean, at least you got golf, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Thanks, Anthony. And great that you're doing this, especially during this time when we don't have a lot of basketball and there's
yeah, I mean, I have nothing to do, so I got a little baby. I need to get some time, but more importantly, I think it's important to document this stuff. We have to have people like you. People need to know who Allison McNeill is. They need to know her story. They need to know what she's been doing. They need to know how she got there, and hopefully that it provides an opportunity for them to get excited, and we can create the next Allison McNeill in whatever fashion, in whatever sport that somebody might be listening to. So thanks so much for joining us, and hopefully we can use this as an opportunity for somebody else to get better.
I hope so. Thanks for including me.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay.